The global energy landscape isn't just shifting, it's being restructured. As big tech pours billions into AI, we're facing the hard truth that these massive data centers have an insatiable hunger for 24/7 power. And nuclear is emerging as the only carbon free source capable of supplying energy at that scale. But for investors, the real story isn't just the reactors, it's the fuel. Uranium prices have soared nearly fourfold in the last decade. And while mining uranium is a commodity business, the real value add lies in the enrichment process. And that's where things get complicated. For decades, the U.S. offshored this critical step, leaving Russia in control of roughly half of the global capacity in the uranium market. But in today's geopolitical climate, that's no longer viewed as just a supply chain risk. It's also seen as a national security crisis. And the race for a domestic, American-led supply chain is officially on. On this episode of Growth Stories, we talk with Jay Yu, founder and CEO of LIS Technologies. With over 20 years of experience in capital markets and nuclear tech, Yu is currently leading one of the most ambitious energy projects in the U.S., a $1.4 billion laser-based enrichment facility in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. We'll dive into the massive shifts happening in the nuclear market, LIS Technologies' roadmap to commercialization, and why the nuclear renaissance can't take off until a domestic fuel supply is secured. Jay, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me today.
And let's just start by getting a 30,000-foot view, if you will, of the industry. You've been working in this space for over 2 decades. So how have the massive deals for nuclear-powered data centers changed the demand profile for uranium? And I guess just tell us how much of a shift you've really seen in the last few years.
Yeah, so let's look at the current state of kind of the global markets here. You have uranium prices soaring almost fourfold in the past decade, if not more. And you have now this bottleneck of fuel that's needed for all these small modular reactors that are coming online in the end of the decade. Then you have also the large civil nuclear reactors that are now being also being trying to mass produced around the world. I mean, China's leading the world in creating a lot of these reactors. I think they're creating more reactors than everyone put together. But this race has now, concentrated this bottleneck for uranium, and uranium prices are soaring. Yet also there's not enough mining of uranium, which is a critical mineral now. Also, let's now move towards the AI data center side of things. Now, with the surge in this and with all these large tech companies pouring in, you're now seeing this huge demand for nuclear because nuclear provides a base load energy for these AI data centers. And now you have to look downstream, upstream, pretty much the whole fuel cycle. And you have to be able to produce uranium at a much higher quantity. So, this is a whole kind of full circle event where, it's a chicken and egg thing where you need more raw material to eventually power these reactors, which eventually will power the data centers. So, this organic shift here, this structural shift in uranium is a key here now to kind of unlocking nuclear.
And LIS Technologies is really seen as an emerging player to really rebuild that domestic nuclear fuel supply chain. So what problem or problems are you aiming to solve?
Yeah, so LIS Technologies is the only US origin and patented technology for laser uranium enrichment. And what that simply means is, the current world uses centrifuge technology, which is, dates back, decades. You talk about 50 years plus. And yeah, there's been innovation in centrifuges, but the third generation of this is considered the holy grail, which what LIS Technologies is doing, which is using lasers to enrich uranium at a much cheaper cost than centrifuges. So right now, I think if you look at the pie chart, 43% of enrichment is controlled commercially by Russia. Um, about 16% China, and 40% Europe, and 1% all other, which puts the US into that bucket. Okay. Essentially, the nuclear enrichment industry here in the U.S. has been atrophied. We've been reliant on foreign entities like Russia buying the enrichment. But now we're not looking to rebuild that capability in the U.S. And List Technologies is a part of that build back of the U.S. capabilities. So we're looking to commercialize our technology, which was developed by our inventor, Dr. Jeff Erkins, back in the 1970s. His story is really remarkable too, because he was a survivor of World War II when Japan invaded Asia. He's Dutch, but he lived in Indonesia, and he was actually put into a concentration camp. So what saved him was the first atomic bomb that dropped, and so he dedicated his life to learning everything about the atom, and then he became a nuclear scientist, PhD from UC Berkeley. And then he is considered now the founding father of laser uranium enrichment. So it's his technology, which is the patented crystalline technology that we're using for LIST to build back the U.S. enrichment capabilities. Now, what we did next is we bought an island in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and now that island will be our LIST island, and it'll be used to create this commercial laser enrichment facility.
Yeah, can you get a little bit deeper into the science here of list technologies and how that refinement process works, and maybe how it's differentiated, as you mentioned, from the traditional centrifuge method?
Yeah, I would say our technology, let's just look back. The first generation of enrichment is gas diffusion. The second is centrifuges, which the whole world essentially uses right now. And the third, or the holy grail, is laser enrichment. So when you use lasers, it's more cost effective, energy effective. So essentially, you could create, it's called SWU, separative work units. That's the amount of work put into enriching uranium. And the current spot price for a SWU, c- is almost, I think, 200 per SWU, right? $200. Now with our modeling, we could get it as low as almost 30 to $40. So that is the drastic, I would say, numbers. If you do the numbers game, so that's why it's considered the holy grail, because if you're able to enrich uranium at this less of an economic burden for the U.S., for the company, then we could help expedite that. It becomes more cost effective, and investors will come in and pour into this because they see those numbers. Now, back to the science, the difference between us and the rest of the world, I would say, is we use a different wavelength. We use a CW, or a continuous wavelength, where we hit the UF6 gas that we need to enrich it. So the way the whole fuel cycle works is you have uranium mining, right, which produces yellow cake, or uranium ore, and then you take that and you turn it into UF6 gas, and then that gas is used where the centrifuge uses to enrich, but we're using lasers instead to isolate the isotope. So that is where it's cost effective. That is where our continuous wave hits the UF6 gas all day long, whereas other technologies are pulse or different uses where it doesn't hit the gas the whole time. And that's why we think our patented technology will succeed in a scalable and commercial way.
We talked about the enrichment process. Are there any challenges or opportunities with having to secure that raw uranium feedstock?
Yeah, I mean, we're in talks with a number of partners to get that feedstock as well. So the goal is, to establish all of this in the future. Full disclosure, I am the founder and chairman of Nano Nuclear Energy. We're an advanced modular microreactor company, but also we have a partnership with List Technologies where Nano will be responsible also for that side of things, to help source that yellow cake or uranium ore. And also, there's another process called conversion. You got to actually convert that into gas, and Nano is looking into that as well. So we're looking to actually build the whole fuel cycle between nano, nuclear, and list technologies because that pay both play a critical role in the fuel cycle. And having partners on one end and on the other end is important. And obviously we've engaged a ton of contractors and subject matter experts in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I call it the Silicon Valley of nuclear just because there's so much rich history there, and also know-how. Like we have so much expertise around us that List Technologies can leverage all of that in Oak Ridge, Tennessee for our benefit.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the connection with nanonuclear because, as you mentioned, seems like it's imperative to developing that technology for these small modular reactors. Is this the kind of main use case that you're seeing for LIS, or what are some of the other end uses you're seeing with that generation?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is why I think it makes sense that Nano has a partnership with List, just because we will need fuel in the end. And if we can somehow source it with Liz and get it at the cheapest cost essentially in the world, then it also helps competitively our economics and so forth, to the end customer as well. So there's other partnerships we have, like with Boston Government Services, where they're helping actually design our whole List Island that we just purchased, which is a 206-acre island at the former K-25 historic site, which is where the first enriched uranium for the first nuclear bomb was developed in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, right? So it's almost a full circle event there. But yeah, List is trying to build this with Nano, creating a full fuel cycle and end product so we could deliver it to civil nuclear reactors and to also the small modular reactors that are coming online in the future.
As you mentioned, with a lot of the enrichment happening right now, happening in countries that aren't particularly friendly with us, or perhaps there's some tensions there, the Department of Energy recently announced $2.7 billion to strengthen this domestic enrichment over the next 10 years. LIS was awarded a contract as part of that effort. You mentioned the Enrichment Island Initiative, but can you talk a little bit more about how you're viewing the regulatory space right now, and really what's at stake here with getting this right?
Yeah, so yeah, we were very happy to be included in the DOE's LEU acquisition program, which we were List Technologies was selected as one of the six recipients of that. Now, how that works is there's task orders, and we kind of apply for those task orders, and eventually we'll win some awards from them. The amounts we don't know yet, but we're looking forward to that. And yeah, the DOE and the current administration is looking to pour back into this, like I said, to build back the US capability, not just building what I always call is Ferraris. You're always building these small modular reactors, these advanced reactors that I call our Ferraris, right? But now there's no gas to power these Ferraris, and List Technologies will be part of the gas side of things, which is a current bottleneck here. And this is why the current administration and the DOE is pouring billions of dollars into building back the fuel cycle, because you need that gas to power the Ferrari. But yeah, we're very excited about the future, working with the government. We selected Tennessee because Tennessee has a rich history of this. There's also the state has a nuclear fund there as well that the governor put together. So, it's just a ton of interest and momentum there, that we want to be a part of that.
And with that momentum, in terms of timeline, is the goal to reach commercial operations then by the end of the decade? And how much are those government subsidies playing into that ability to get going?
Yeah, I would say that it obviously getting government support reinforces kind of the credibility in what you're doing as a company, and us already being selected as one of the six recipients that will receive some funding. That's already important to us. Hopefully we work with the state as well of Tennessee to kind of unlock more additional funding or incentives that we may get, because we are creating hundreds of high-paying jobs in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and we're looking to continue to expand. But yeah, it's right now. I would say all hands on deck situation where everyone is pouring back in and developing this, and you need the full fuel cycle in order to power the future of nuclear.
Yeah, and we've seen the U.S. government starting to take equity stakes in certain industries like uranium and nuclear. We see that with chips as well. How do you see that involvement impacting the market? Do you think that there'll be more of a distinction between Western pricing versus rest of the world pricing when it comes to the price floors for uranium?
I would say, yeah, that's a very powerful statement when the government invests directly into companies with critical technologies or minerals that they can help kind of reinforce energy security in the US. So, List Technologies is, I would say, it will be one of the most critical technologies in the US just because if you think about our use cases, right? Like you need the gas to power the Ferraris. Ferraris also could be aircraft carriers, submarines, because they use also high HEU or high enriched uranium. We're obviously focused on peaceful use of enrichment. But there's so much I would say Ferraris out there that you need to actually invest into companies like List Technologies because I always say List Technologies could make the U.S. Technically stronger than Russia and China, right? Because once again, they control the enrichment. If the U.S. somehow could come in and balance that pie chart, like I explained earlier, then it gives the U.S. even that much more power and negotiating power in the global markets. So if we're able to produce the cheapest enriched uranium in the world, I mean, List Technologies will separate itself from the pack, I would say. And we've modeled it ourselves internally, and we believe we can do that.
In terms of separating yourself from the pack, how do you view the competitive field? And how is your approach maybe differentiated from a global laser enrichment?
Yeah. Like I said, we use a different wavelength. You know, the physics and science behind this is very important. Also, we've benefited from decades of R&D that was already studied and executed, and results were very promising. And that's why List Technologies is here, is because there was historic results. There were years of this R&D that was put into place. But at the time when our inventor Dr. Jeff Erkins was advancing this is where prices of uranium came down, right? It was much cheaper to buy from Russia than to actually put hundreds of millions of dollars into the development of this. But now it's reversed. Now we want to be independent and we don't want to rely on foreign adversaries and foreign entities for our capabilities, right? So now this is in a place where we could take all that historic data, R&D, and use it for our benefit to advance for commercialization. And we're looking to commercialize in early 2030s, in or around that time. So that is when a lot of these small reactors are coming online, like nano reactors. And so the timing is almost perfectly aligned with a lot of the goals of the U.S. and with all the advanced nuclear technologies.
I was going to ask about timeline because, as you know, investors love to know when things are coming online. But what, in your mind, is needed to be able to scale this technology then as we move forward with this data center build out and needing all of this energy?
Yeah, I think the timelines, like I said, we're looking at commercializing in early 2030s. Obviously, that is contingent upon raising a lot of capital. We're looking to invest over time to build out our commercial laser enrichment facility on our List Island, $1.38 billion. So, having government incentives will benefit from that. We've been successful in raising a number of oversubscribed investment rounds. So that shows the kind of investor demand, I would say, for us. We even get emails every day from random people saying, hey, how do we invest into your company? Just because we see the writing on the wall, we see that the US is building back this capability. How do we invest? Even ARK Invest, Kathy Wood, famous investor, they wrote a piece about how the U.S. needs to build back its uranium enrichment because in order for AI and data centers to succeed, you need to do that. And they listed at the very bottom the benefactors of this, and they said List Technologies will be one of the benefactors of this build back. So there's a number of credible people who have looked at us and who are very interested in our technologies and what we're doing. But what also separates us is our laser scientists, I would say. Our executive team is mostly made up from ASML. Okay, without ASML, there's no semiconductor chips. There's no AI in the world. So we have that same type of pedigree that we're bringing into laser uranium enrichment for this. So when people say this has never been scaled commercially across the world, well, we have the team to do it. I mean, if they can't do it, I don't think anyone else in the world can, just because this is the same type of pedigree that created semiconductor chips, right?
Mhm.
With ASML. So, we're very confident with our technical teams. Also, even the nuclear regulatory licensing is a big part of this as well. We've hired former NRC people who have done this already, who've gone through licensing and getting it commercialized. So we've hired a number of NRC people, even ones that help protect physical locations, right? Because you need that. Because List Technologies will be a classified technology in the future, I would say as well. So, you need basically A to Z. You need the full kind of A team here in order to succeed.
All right, Jay. Well, thank you so much for your insights today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.